One, a rising star in the Democrat Party appears on the Will Cain Show and utters some of the most blatant lies in the history of television. Not quite done, he then goes to social media and betrays what it means to be a pastor. Where are you now, James Tallarico? Coming up on Will Cain Country. 2, sound from your biggest stars in the Democrat Party and where they are today. What defines the future of the left with Tom Shillue. 3, I don't remember because I'm too worked up, but we've got more for you today here on Will Cain Country. It is Will Cain Country, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, the Will Cain Country YouTube channel, terrestrial radio market to market across this great United States of America, but always on demand by subscribing at Apple or on Spotify. What is happening today in story number 3? 2-a-days Dan, tinfoil Pat. I'm so worked up. I've got to go ahead and calm down. But there is nothing that quite pisses me off like calling into question my integrity from a damned state-level politician, a youth pastor, middle school teacher calling into question my integrity. That's going to be the focus of today's Will Cain Country. What did I forget? What are we doing besides hanging out with Tom Shillue? What are we doing in story number 3?
Talking about Josh Hamilton, a little dog bracket, lighten things up a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Fired up.
What dog is the conservative breed? We've had a March Madness-style bracket. Is it the German Shepherd? Is it the Labrador Retriever? Is it the Beagle? Everybody seems to be confused. I'm not talking about your dog. I'm talking about your breed. The famous question when I took the LSAT that seems to define whether or not people understand logic is as follows. All baseball players wear hats. Do all people that wear hats play baseball? Just because your dog breed may in fact be coded left doesn't mean that your dog, your in particular dog, your Bernedoodle named Sandy, is Beto O'Rourke. Still, like certain shoes or certain food, certain dogs code left or code right. We make our way down through our March Madness style bracket. But let's get to it. No further ado. Let's lean into the energy. Story number 1. Representative James Tallarico of Texas, currently residing in Illinois, traveling around not with breakfast tacos, but with a Texas state flag, appeared yesterday on the Will Cain Show. Now, James Tallarico, for those of you who do not know, is a rising star in the Democrat Party. And in fact, his appearance yesterday with me seems to be further evidence that he's the future for Democrats. At least that's what's being said virally. Let's set the stage with a few more ornaments. James Tallarico has been laundered, filtered through not just mainstream media, but those who seem to define what is a conversation of goodwill, what is a conversation of integrity, what is a true search for the truth. His star has popped because James Tallarico has appeared on Joe Rogan.
I guess all I'm pushing back on is that second step of it's always going to be this way.
Right. It doesn't have to be this way.
That is the key step.
Right.
So
I'm that's because you need to run for president.
Yeah.
We need someone who's actually a good person.
Well,
because the Democrats have very few candidates.
We need somebody who is a good person. And with that youth pastor voice and that middle school teacher demeanor, one would think that's the actual integrity, that's the actual character of James Tallarico. Style over substance. As I've often quoted, Ronald Reagan's communication advisor said it's 80% how you look, 15% how you sound, and only 5% what you say. James Tallarico has all the trappings and stylings of someone who's different, that he's not simply a regular politician. How is James Tallarico different? Well, in one respect, he went to seminary. He's a pastor. oh my, we're dealing with someone of really high character who just so happens to be a Democrat. Well, I would like to explore that character in all of about 10 minutes. That's how much time I gave James Tallarico yesterday on the Will Cain Show. 10 minutes to discuss why he has abandoned the state of Texas, why he has carted off his college dorm room Texas flag and flung it behind him at the La Quinta outside Chicago. I wanted to talk about who's funding this foray, multi-week foray into Illinois. George Soros and Beto O'Rourke both have PACs that are funneling money into Texas politicians. And when asked directly, Tallarico told me no money from Soros. Accepting one's integrity, they hope that would be true. Does he deserve that benefit of the doubt? Is he worthy of the rising star? Well, in 10 minutes and on the internet afterwards, Tallarico uttered no fewer than 4 blatant lies that he then used to pretend somehow he slam dunked on Fox News. Let's explore it. Let's do it together. And James Tallarico, wherever you are out there, banging around Wrigley Field, you are always welcome to come back and have this conversation with one of the few people in media who does not cut and run, but who'll look you dead in your eye. Take some losses and take some punches. This ain't a game. It isn't WWE. It's real life. Sometimes I'll be wrong. But one thing I will never do is lie. Here is what Tallarico posted after our 10-minute conversation yesterday. He went to every social media platform, TikTok, X, and Instagram, and posted the following. He said that he went on to Fox News and told the truth about redistricting and the power grab in Texas. I asked a simple question. If Republican policies are as popular or so popular, why do they need to redraw these maps and not run on their policies? Obliquely, he says he, referring to me, Will Cain, refused to answer and cut the interview short. To that, something I rarely do, which is dive into the mud of viral social media, responded in this way to Tallarico. I told the representative, oh, James, I expect internet trolls to distort the interview, but you were there. I respectfully gave you 10 minutes, an eternity in cable news. And in that time, you had no answer as to why you've abandoned your job. You can take a flag to Illinois, but you still cut and run from Texas. There's an interesting thing about the way that it works on the internet, especially now on X. You post clips. We post clips. Perhaps some of you consume Will Cain Country on Instagram or on X. But what I've learned is, wherein we used to say no one will watch a 2-minute clip, we have to reduce it to 30 seconds. The truth is, nobody watches a 30-second clip. Everybody reads the caption above the video and presume that is what has happened in the video. From there, by the way, dirty rags in the media run headlines based upon the caption of an X post. And now you've laundered it and filtered it through the trappings, the pretense, the costume of credibility. And you have now manipulated the truth. And only in certain moments can you look back and go, what was actually true? Let's walk through it one at a time. This morning, I'm as guilty as everybody else, is the first time I actually watched the video that Tallarico posted. He posted approximately 1 minute and 10 seconds of a 10-minute conversation. In that 1 minute and 10 seconds, he jump cut edited our conversation twice. Do you know what a jump cut edit is? He cuts out portions. He takes portions of one segment of the interview and abuts it to another segment of the interview. he, in that, tried to put together two moments where he thought he was creating a slam dunk and I was flustered or faltering. And then he cuts the video off at the very end, seeming to fulfill the caption. He cut the interview short. Do you care about the truth? I'm serious. I ask you that question. If you disagree with me, if you're on the left, I only ask you one question. Do you care about the truth? Let's walk through the truth and the four lies uttered by the rising star of Democrats. Number one, Tallarico tells me in a moment of great victory, as I point out, that Democrats have 100% of the seats in Massachusetts, and yet 35% of the vote is Republican, pointing out that it is a gerrymandered state, as is Illinois, as is California, and you're making a big to-do about Texas doing something to a lesser extent than Massachusetts. Tallarico then seems to come over the top with, but did you know this, Will? Representative, you gave the ballgame analogy. In my view, what has happened here is you've done something in certain states, and you don't like it when it's done in Republican states. And now you're saying you've done the same thing as us. You've done the same thing as us, and we are going to, by the way, if you do it, we're going to ratchet it up even more, in the words of Gavin Newsom.
My party has never gerrymandered in the middle of the decade at the request of the President of the United States, nor would we. The only way this is going to happen in blue states is if Texas executes this power grab. You mentioned Massachusetts. Right. Do you know the party of the governor that signed that map into law? He was a Republican. It was a Republican governor that signed that map into law. So I just want to be clear with our facts, and I don't want to muddy the waters. All of us, whether we're Democrats, independents, or Republicans, we should stand up to politicians who don't want to face accountability at the ballot box. That's exactly what's happening here. And I asked you, if Republican policies are popular, why do they need to redraw these maps? Why?
Number one, if Republicans' policies are popular, why do they redraw these maps? The implication being that Republicans are rigging the game for unpopular policies. Currently, congressional Democrats have the lowest rating in the history of the United States of America, the lowest approval rating in the history of the United States of America. In the state of Texas, where the game is supposedly being rigged, Republicans own an overwhelming majority in the state and Senate. They also own the governorship. President Donald Trump won at a national level overwhelmingly over Kamala Harris. All of this evidence of popular policies. Lie number one, Republicans are doing this because their policies are not popular. Lie number two, Tallarico suggests that a Republican governor approved of that map drawn in Massachusetts. The point of that line is to suggest to me and to you who is listening, even in Massachusetts, it was a bipartisan support for that map. That is lie number two. Charlie Baker was the governor of Massachusetts in 2020 when that map was drawn. Did you know, exposing the lie, that Democrats controlled a supermajority of the Massachusetts legislature, meaning they had a veto-proof majority? There's nothing the Republican governor could do. Nothing. If he had vetoed it, no problem. They moved forward with that same map. Charlie Baker did something that he had to do. It wasn't endorsement, wasn't bipartisan, wasn't nonpartisan. But Tallarico lies to you and to me in their face. Now, if you want to criticize me today for not knowing that in the moment, that's a fair piece of criticism. I didn't know that in 2020, Democrats had a supermajority, a veto-proof majority in Massachusetts to call him to the mat in that very moment. As was the case when he brings up obliquely this idea of Democrats actually wanted to outlaw gerrymandering. That's what they wanted to do. In fact, they put a bill on Congress's floor, outlaw gerrymandering. Republicans love rigging elections so much that they voted down a quote-unquote gerrymandering law. Here is that moment.
Do you know how many Republicans joined Democrats in the U.S. Congress to ban gerrymandering? All the Democrats voted for it. 0 Republicans voted for it. 0.
It's an odd.
So
it's an odd.
You can spare me the both sides rhetoric. It's clearly one side that is trying to rig the rules in the middle of the game. This is like two football teams coming out of the locker room at halftime, and the team that's ahead says they want to change the rules for the second half so they can win the game. All of us would be throwing food at the TV if that happened. We don't accept cheating in our politics. We don't accept cheating in our relationships. We shouldn't accept cheating in our elections.
I appreciate whatever you just referred to about the number of Democrat congressmen that I'm unfamiliar with who made this against Republican Congress. Here's why I'm unfamiliar with that. And again, I'm open to criticism that I should have known that in the moment. But he vaguely refers to a gerrymandering law. What was he talking about? What gerrymandering law did 0 Republicans vote for? Well, he's referring to 2 potential laws, one coming out of the Senate and one coming out of the House. These are in roughly 2021. Those laws, by the way, are entitled, I want to make sure I get this right for you because you deserve facts, the Freedom to Vote Act and the For the People Act. The For the People Act, H.R. 1 coming out of the Senate, the Freedom to Vote Act coming out of the House. No Republicans voted for that. Weird. I guess it means Republicans like gerrymandering, right? Exactly as the pastor suggested. Exactly as he suggested. It's not a both sides thing. Democrats don't like gerrymandering. Republicans like to cheat. And it's there on the voting record. Did you know that both the Freedom to Vote Act and the For the People Act, those bills included things like voting for felons, mandatory mail-in balloting, expanding voter ID to include things like college IDs. These were massive bills designed to blow up the integrity of our elections. And inside that, they put some things in there as well about gerrymandering. And by the way, you know this intuitively and with common sense. Congress doesn't create any narrowly tailored bill. Never. So you say, oh, the gerrymandering bill. What gerrymandering bill? There was no gerrymandering bill. You're talking about H.R. 1, where you wanted to explode mail-in balloting, do away with voter ID. And that's effectively what you're doing when you say, let me go and see if I can get a Pepperdine college ID laminated and printed off, and that'll help me get an extra ballot. Please, with your college IDs. He lies to you about a gerrymandering law. By the way, this one makes him like every other politician. It's what they do. It's why they pack everything into one bill, because then they can say, you voted against X. Well, I had to vote against X because I also didn't like A, B, and C, which you packed into that bill. But that's a lie. He knows what he's doing. That's a blatant lie from the middle school teacher. That is lie number 3. Then, finally, he suggests, and he goes to social media to say this afterwards, that I was scared of these questions, that I ran from these questions. And this is the part that really pisses me off because it impugns my integrity. And I'm the guy that invites these people on over and over. And by the way, pastor, representative, you're welcome to come back and talk about your multitude of lies. Because then he suggests that I cut the interview short. And he edited it to make it look like I actually did that. What he doesn't tell you is, these parts don't matter. There will be a part that matters, but this part matters for you. Television interviews are almost always short, about 4 to 5 minutes. I'm actually pushing the limits because I'm trying to do something that's a bit more podcasty. I'm at times doing 15-minute interviews, sometimes doing 10. Even 7 minutes is an eternity in cable news. I had gotten wrapped multiple times. That interview was booked for 5 minutes, and I pushed it more towards 10. I had gotten wrapped. Why did I get wrapped? My producers don't wrap me because they're afraid of what's happening. They would never do that. And by the way, they never give me instructions in my ear beyond time cues. I'd pushed that interview so far that what I left for my final segment, which I have to do to hand it off to the 5, was 2 minutes. I had 2 minutes. You can look at the clock and see I came back at 4:58. I got to hand it off by 5. If I push it any further, I'm severely compromising essentially the way television works. So, having already done an interview, longer than almost any on cable news. By the way, he's not the first Democrat or Texas Democrat that I've invited on this show. I've had 2 others. He went longer than any others. So he's suggesting I ran from these questions and I cut this interview short. But here's the real part that matters to you, not the mechanics of TV. Is after I told him, I got to go, we're running short on time, I went another minute and a half in where we talked about, and I pressed him on who's funding this. He promised me with the trappings and stylings of integrity that he would not take money from George Soros or Beto O'Rourke. And then he joked around about missing breakfast tacos in Texas. All of this conducted with joviality, goodwill, and respect. And your rising star of the Democrat Party, the man cloaking himself in integrity with the middle school teacher voice and the pastor patina, goes to the internet immediately afterwards and says, the 4th and most obvious lie is which that I cut him short. Now, I ask you one more time. Do you care about the truth? If you care about the truth, you just heard it. And if he has the nutsack and the spine to come on, he's invited as well to come on and face the truth. But my suspicion is, like every fraudulent pastor that you've ever met in your life, and I know that you have, this man knows no more about God than he does about telling the truth. And that, I have to say, with some level of conviction. Because no man of God that I know manages to lie blatantly 4 times in 8 minutes and then triple down on the internet. Your rising star is a fraud. Your rising star can't go 2 minutes without uttering a lie. And that's the best you got, Democrats. I give you the worst when we come back on Will Cain Country. All I'm saying is that your pit bull and your chihuahua code to the left. That doesn't mean he is on the left or that you're on the left. Just when you walk around, other people see you without knowing your dog and go, I guess he's on the left. It is Will Cain Country, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, on the Fox News Facebook page. We introduced how does your dog breed code. And what code means is how do other people read that about you when you walk around. The reputation that they maintain, the lane that they have defined. Look, man, it's not that I think I'm better than you walking around with a Doberman. It's just that I think I'm better than you. In all seriousness, I wear Vans, checkered Vans, when I walk my dog. I slip on checkered Vans. I know damn well how that codes. It codes to the left. Look, man, it's like avocado toast. You know as well as I do that if you order avocado toast, it tastes great. I love avocado toast. A little bit of poached egg on top with the paprika. It's incredible. Can I get the whole grain or the one with a lot of seeds in it, that bread? It's amazing. And then, which really throws it off is if you say, can I get bacon on my avocado toast? I get it. But you got to understand, when you're at brunch, it codes left. You might as well be at brunch. Brunch itself codes left. Brunch codes left. You have to understand these things. It's how other people see you, and that's what we're getting into. I'm sorry, and you know it. Everything about you two-a-days codes left. And that doesn't mean you are, but that's what it means to code left. So in fact, as well, that's your dog breed. I just talked about James Tallarico and said that's the best you got when it comes to Democrats. Let's talk about some of the worst, by the way, which is increasingly not the aberration and not the exception. It is defining the Democrat Party. Let's talk about that with Tom Shillue, comedian, Fox News contributor, and by the way, a man whose tour dates and tickets you can check out at tomshillue.com. What is up, Tom?
I love starting with the plug. That's the best way to do things. And,
Absolutely, man. You don't throw it in at the end as a footnote or an addendum. You put it out there right at the top.
Now, Will, I'm listening to you. I don't do avocado toast, but I'm realizing most of my hobbies and likes are probably coded left, okay? Hot yoga.
Yeah.
Hot yoga class, I love it. It's very good.
No doubt.
Hiking.
No doubt.
I'm an outdoorsman, but I don't do, like, snowmobiles, and I don't do motorboats. I do sailing, and I like hiking. You tend to run into left-wingers out there.
So, Tom,
yeah,
you're getting it immediately, and a lot of viewers don't, right? They don't get it. They think I'm saying they're on their left. Here's another. I like hiking. My wife loves hiking, so by extension, I have to like hiking. But I actually do when we do it. I know you're exactly right. Hiking codes left.
Yeah. Yeah, but I always feel like it's, and I want to be like I like those guys. I like the snowmobile guys. I like the ATV guys. But when I'm out in nature, I don't like the motor sports. I like the quiet. That tends, that's like, what's that is like. It's like the left wingers, right?
Right. I mean, anybody watching or listening who kind of still doubts what I'm getting at, I just ask you this. All right. You show up to the base of some foothills on the edge of a range, and there's 2 guys there. One is dressed in the padded costume thing that they wear for dirt bikers, and he has a helmet.
Yeah.
And he's pulling off a dirt bike off of a truck trailer. And you look at that guy, and you think, does that guy like Donald Trump? On the other hand, there's a guy over here walking up with his socks pulled up to his calves, some high top hiking boots. He's got one of those backpacks with the thing that comes around the front that he can drink water without ever even having to take anything out. He can just sip a Camelback as he goes. And you say to yourself, does that guy like Donald Trump? Now, it may not be fair, but if you're being honest, you know which way you're placing your bets.
Yeah. And it's guys like you and me, I think it's sometimes you're surprised by it because you'll go to Austin or you'll go to some place and you're in some kind of liberal neighborhood. I was in San Francisco recently, and you don't expect to be recognized because you don't see the Fox News viewers there, the Gutfeld viewers. But then I'll go into a coffee shop and I'll see somebody with tattoos and I'll just make my order. I think I'm going to be anonymous. And they look at me and they say, I watch you every night. And I'm always surprised when I see the tattoo guy watches Gutfeld. Because that's the opposite. He codes left, but he's right.
Oh, man. I love the surprises. I like to think at times you and I are surprises as well in the way that we're sending out our messages out there, but it also applies to your dog breeds. All right, Tom Shillue with us here on Will Cain Country. I want to run through some of these people, Tom, on a whole host of issues here, actually, from Texas redistricting to the National Guard taking on D.C. police. And I want to get to you some of the response that you're hearing out there. So first of all, this is from MSNBC, and I can't pronounce this guy's name. I think if somebody even said it to me, I wouldn't be able to repeat it back. But he has a haircut a little bit like the kid in the Incredibles, or the bad guy kid in Incredibles. You know, it's standing up on end. It looks like a flame. In this guy's
Buddy,
case,
don't call me buddy.
big bright silver. A big bright silver flamed buddy. Here he is on MSNBC.
D.C. does have one really big crime problem, which was the January 6th insurrection incited by the current President of the United States. And his first act in coming back was pardoning all the people who tried to overturn constitutional republic order in Washington, D.C. When I go to D.C., I'm not afraid of losing my wallet so much as I'm afraid of losing my vote. I'm not afraid of losing my wallet so much as I'm afraid that my children's freedom to breathe will be stolen in a world where climate change policy is non-existent.
Amazing.
The responses to this, Tom, are amazing, by the way. It's stuff like, that's exactly what I'm afraid of when I'm walking down U Street at 1 a.m. Climate change beating me over the head and sending me to the hospital.
That reminds me of an old Chris Rock bit, very early Chris Rock, but he talked about, when he's in a bad neighborhood, he doesn't look over his shoulder. He's not afraid of the media. He says people blame the media for this, and he's like, I've never been attacked in the late at night by the media. And this guy is. I heard these two sound bites separately. I heard the first part about January 6th yesterday, and then I saw the video of this guy this morning. Talking about what he's worried about. And it's interesting because a guy, Jonah Goldberg, who kind of annoys me sometimes on Twitter, but he made a great observation that this guy talks the way that characters from the West Wing talk. Like, it's not real politics. It's a TV idea of what politics is. So he says when he's in D.C., he's worrying about, climate change, everything. It's not really true. That's the way that Aaron Sorkin wishes people thought in D.C., but it's not the way real people think.
No, it's not. He said that he's mostly worried about losing his right to vote and climate change, and he once again invokes January 6th. Others have pointed out, oh my God, like the man who's in the White House is one of the biggest felons in there for cracking down on crime, 34 felons. And again, somebody else said, that's another thing I'm terrified of when I'm walking the street late at night, somebody classifying expenses as legal expenses. That's exactly what I'm terrified of. Yeah. The accusation of what Donald Trump did in New York. No, man, we're worried about carjacking and assault.
Yeah, and put it up. I mean, if he wants to take January 6th with such a silly example, but I'll take it. Take January 6th and take the people who were there and even the bad things that happened there, the broken windows and people getting hurt and whatever. Put it all up against the street crime of D.C. Yeah, we'll take it. Of course, January 6th pales in comparison to the street crime of D.C.
Right. That is absolutely true. Okay, it's not just flame-haired buddy on MSNBC. It is people who, have at one time maintained office but lost several times since. It's Beto O'Rourke, who we played yesterday, but he's on a tour of dumbfounding statements. I think this is called Netroots. Netroots must be the place they all go to say the most outlandish things on the left. And here, he triples down when talking about redistricting on. And by the way, triples down and reveals the id. Is it the id that exists below the ego? What he truly believes about rules and power.
We are in a basketball game right now, if you'll excuse the metaphor, where the refs have left the arena. And the other side is just clobbering the shit out of us, just punching us in the face, kicking us in the nuts. And we're kind of throwing our hands up and we're asking the crowd, the people of America, hey, do you see what's going on here? This is unfair. This isn't the rules that we agreed to play by. Well, who cares about the rules right now? Punch back, kick back, dunk over their heads, and win some power.
Wow.
There you go. Who cares about the rules? Win some power. I mean, I actually think that's what we've been saying is their driving ideology for like 10 years. And now, I mean, after being called a conspiracy theorist, you hear it straight from the words, from the mouth of Beto.
And don't they admit, I mean, Democrats will admit they've engaged in redistricting and gerrymandering and this kind of thing. They're experts at it. My home state of Massachusetts, if you look at the map, it's all blue. Now, when I go home to Massachusetts, I see those ATV guys and I see those duck hunters and I see those guys with their pit bulls and Dobermans, you know, with their Trump hats on that are coding right. There's entire towns that are right wing. Well, why don't we see that on the map? Why don't we see a red area or a pink area? Because all the right wingers have been redistricted out of Massachusetts.
Yeah, not one congressman to reflect that Doberman guy in Massachusetts. This is my point. The pit bull lady, that's who it is. It's the pit bull lady. She is well represented in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
We'll get to that here in a little bit. But Beto's not done, Tom. He's not done. Here is Beto on really what's driving all of this in the end, which is it's like they've all been watching a soap opera and they've bought into the plot, and the only story they ever care about is Donald Trump is Hitler. Watch.
Remember, Donald Trump promised us he would be a dictator on day one. He promised us that if you vote in the 2024 elections, that's the last time you'll ever have to cast a ballot. It took Hitler just 53 days to destroy German democracy. At every major turn, every time he exceeded his authority, defied the German Constitution, broke down the rule of law in that country, the German press, the German politicians, the German public, most importantly, did too little, too late.
Wow.
Man, Beto really is. He does the worst version of everything. You know what I mean? The one that's already been debunked, the one that's already been retired, the one that's already been fact-checked. Like, that's his song, man. Donald Trump said he'd be a dictator on day one. Donald Trump said if you vote for him, you'll never have to vote again. I mean,
yeah, it was almost like...
why is this guy still around?
Well, that's
why do
the
we
thing.
still have Beto?
I'm trying to think of his analogy because he said, forgive the analogy, and then he compared it to a basketball game where the refs have all left the stadium, right? How about Beto's career is like a guy who has never scored a basket and somehow he keeps getting drafted and he's on your team and you're thinking like, has this guy ever done anything to help this team score? No, but why do we keep him around? And so he's worried about democracy when he's engaged in democracy and he keeps losing. The guy's never won an election, but he still has he has donors. So it's the money keeps coming to Beto, and now he basically just runs, I think, a PAC, right?
Tom, let's figure out why. Let's figure out why real quick. This is just for fun, okay? Dude has lost 3 times. Everything. Yeah. Governor, Senate, presidency. And to your point, he still is taken seriously. He still has some kind of, I don't know, credibility on the left. Why? Let's just kind of, are you Gen X, Tom?
Yes, I'm Gen X.
I'm Gen X.
I'm a little older Gen X. I went to high school in 1984. That was my graduating year.
Let's just clarify that.
Yeah. I'm like Gutfeld. I'm the Gutfeld era.
But we are both Gen X.
Yeah.
Is Gutfeld a Gen Xer? I think he's a boomer.
I think
right?
I think he is a Gen Xer because it is 65 to 80.
He seems like a Gen Xer.
Yeah, it's 1965 to 1980 birth year, and Greg is 65.
Okay, well, so two days just said Gutfeld is 64 years old.
No, I'm seeing 1964.
What does that mean?
Oh, 64?
1964.
Okay, he's a boomer.
Oh, he's born in 64.
Yeah. I thought because he's basically a year older than me, Gutfeld. And so I thought he was 65 because I'm 66. I was born in 66. You don't want to get it gets confusing.
Everything about Gutfeld, by the way, reads Gen X. Like, he doesn't read Boomer, he reads Gen X.
Right.
He codes. How about that? He codes Gen X.
And listen, he codes left as well. I mean, this is a guy who was like, he's a fan of the Cramps, and he wore Clash T-shirts in high school. He went to school in San Mateo, so he's Northern California. He was in school with Barry Bonds and Tom Brady, and he was your typical leftist until college, and he started to drift rightward.
Yeah, you're totally right that he codes left. I think he would admit that, right?
Yeah.
By the way, he crushed it on Fallon. How about the ratings, right?
Unbelievable.
I mean, the Fallon ratings, the highest they've been in a year, still lower than the Will Cain show. We should just clarify that. Much lower, actually, than the Will Cain show. But that's not the point. The point is it was a high watermark for Fallon.
Yes.
I mean, it says something about culture.
It does.
America.
Greg is willing to give some credit to the Jonas Brothers, but he is taking some credit for himself. That was, kind of a juggernaut. Jonas Brothers to open the show, and then Greg Gutfeld. And, to be honest, I think there is a certain amount of crossover between Jonas Brothers because their audience, it's not 17-year-olds anymore. It's people who were once 17, but now they're 35. And I think those same people are tuning into Gutfeld at 10 o'clock. And this was huge. For Greg, it was huge for Jimmy Fallon. Look, I've been on Fallon 20 times myself, but I'm not the cultural figure that Greg is. Greg is a major conservative who's known for being conservative. Jimmy has him on the show, and the real story for this, Will, is not that Greg is making all these headlines and Jimmy Fallon got great ratings when Greg was on the show. It's that they are still at BuzzFeed. I printed out the articles for Greg. BuzzFeed, Vulture, and the Daily Beast are still writing hit pieces. So they're trying to shame Jimmy Fallon. They're saying Jimmy Fallon kisses the conservative ring. Oh, Jimmy Fallon, he's like an enabler of right-wing, whatever. It's not going to work. A couple of years ago, the Daily Beast would write a hit piece on you, and you would kneel down and say, I'm sorry. It doesn't work anymore. That's the story.
From what I hear, Tom, the Daily Beast is writing a piece right now about I cut the interview short on James Tallarico. Completely false. The Daily Beast isn't to be taken seriously. And to your point, I don't think anybody does, right? Like, I mean, it has no cultural power whatsoever.
Yeah, but they
and
did.
I don't think Vulture does.
No,
Yeah.
but they used to. I'm
did.
telling you, when I was hosting Red Eye, they would, things would happen on the show, and they would write a hit piece on it and take it out of context. So we did have some controversies, and people had to, they would go around. They call people. They phone them, and they say, did you hear what this guy said on this show? That's unacceptable. We'll never book him on our show again. So they engaged in essentially, what do you call it? Like in the cancel culture, and it worked. And it worked on people like me. And I had one foot in show business back then, and I had casting directors who said, we can't work with that guy anymore. That doesn't happen anymore.
Okay. All right. I have not forgotten that we're talking about Gen X Beto. That's where I was headed, but we're going to come back to that. Trust me, I understand the weave. I understand how to weave. I've taken lessons from President Donald Trump. Actually, it comes naturally. But talking about the cultural power and cancellation, now I want to ask you about Sydney Sweeney for a moment, because this came up, Tom. I think it's a YouGov poll, and it showed only 14% of people actually were upset about the Sydney Sweeney ad and suggesting she's somehow a Nazi now, right? And she's into eugenics. So I've heard people say this, Tom. Sometimes I use as my barometer these lefty sports broadcasters in Dallas, Texas, who kind of, for some reason, historically at least, got to define what is mainstream culture. And they were making the point, nobody actually cared about Sydney Sweeney. And that the implication being that the right manufactured it as outrage bait, rage bait.
The right did?
Nobody cared. That's what the suggestion is. Like there weren't a significant percentage of Americans who actually cared. You found internet trolls, you found TikTok comments, and so forth. That's not true, by the way. It was laundered with credibility through mainstream figures. It was absolutely done so. Now, even that's the case, and only 14% actually were upset by Sydney Sweeney's ad, my argument is 5 years ago, that 14% controlled the culture. That it was always a radical minority. It always was. You not getting the Hollywood casting thing. the power of vulture or whatever, it always was representative of a minute fraction of America, but it carried cultural weight on X or wherever else, right? And that's how we got these radical points of view. And I was at ESPN, Tom, and it's like, okay, I'm saying something I know not to just be rational, but most people believe. And this dude's over here saying that women should be in men's sports or men should be in women's sports and acting like that's the position of normalcy.
Yeah.
My point is, on the Sydney Sweeney thing, the story now is that 14% don't have power. But never forget that 5 years ago, they had all the power to define our culture.
Yeah, and when people did polling after that Sydney Sweeney thing, people would write these kind of think pieces on it, and they would ask people, they would say, Cindy Sweeney was talking about genes and using coded language that reflected the idea of eugenics, which was popular in the early 20th century. Do you agree with the idea of eugenics? And people would say, no, I find it offensive. And they would say, people offended by Sydney Sweeney. You see? So they engineer this thing. They talk to people. They get their feedback. And then they, because the articles that mentioned this Sydney Sweeney thing, they didn't say, oh, this is an ad for jeans where she used, a homophone for jeans and everyone got the joke. They said Sydney Sweeney was advocating eugenics in her commercial. Do you agree or disagree? I mean, it's crazy.
It is crazy. All right, this takes us full circle with Tom Shillue. Why do you think Beto is still a thing? I'm genuinely fascinated by this. And when he came out, there was this famous photo of him, and I can't remember if it was in Texas Monthly or Vanity Fair, and he was out in the Texas countryside with a pickup truck and a Labrador Retriever.
Yep,
He was
Vanity
wearing
Fair.
a shirt like I'm wearing now, I think. Maybe something like that. He looked like, one could argue he looked Kennedy-esque in some way, a Texas version of Kennedy-esque. He also had this Gen X vibe, right? Didn't he used to skateboard out onto the stage here and there? And it was like, oh, he's so cool. And it's like the image was so compelling to the left. Like they loved that Gen X Beto. It's like a CD back in the day when we bought CDs. Like the cover art was so awesome that everybody thought this is going to be amazing. And then the music, the CD itself, sucked.
Yeah.
Right? It was awful. And I think that they're just still caught up in the CD art. They're still caught up in the image of Beto in some way, even though clearly he's a loser.
Yeah, I think it is, you said Kennedy-esque, that's really a key to this whole thing. Democrats knew they had a savior in Obama, okay, because this was Obama, this was a guy, and he could appeal to a broad swath of Americans, and of course he did. He got elected twice, right? They are looking, because they still think that people on the right and people from Texas, conservatives, are racist. And so they're looking for someone who embodies that kind of energy of Obama, but because they think the right is racist and they will never embrace another black or ethnic candidate, they're looking for that white guy, that Kennedy-esque guy. And think of Beto as a startup. He was like a startup that got a lot of money put on him. People put a lot of bets on him. That's why he got the Vanity Fair and he was on Rolling Stone and everything else. And they thought, this is the future of our party, because we're not going to be able to appeal to those hicks unless we have a guy that embodies the Democratic Party but is a white guy, because they think that conservatives are all racist and sexist. So he was their startup, and he's still banking on that. He's still got that money. His stock price has gone down, but he still has investors and backers.
All right, Tom Shillue at the front and back. If you want his tickets and schedule, his tour dates, go to Tom Shillue, SHILLUE.com. Check him out, as always, on Fox or on X. Tom, it's always great to talk to you, man. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
All right. You're welcome. Let's settle it, okay? Does your dog code left? And Major League Baseball MVP Josh Hamilton sat with us earlier this week. You're going to hear that later this week, but we're going to play a clip for you on Will Cain Country. Conservative or liberal, red or blue, your dog, and the bracket coming up here on Will Cain Country. A little bit earlier this week, I was excited. I got to sit down with Major League Baseball MVP, Texas Ranger legend, Josh Hamilton. Everybody who knows baseball is even a casual fan probably remembers Josh Hamilton. Actually, let's put that to the test. 2-a-days Dan, tinfoil Pat, hop in here to the country. Am I right? I am with both of you. We all talked about it earlier this week. 2-a-days, turn around. Young Connor, 23 years old, is behind you. Ask him, does he know Josh Hamilton?
Do you know who Josh Hamilton is? He does not. He does not know who Josh Hamilton is. I know.
Not sports, not politics, not news, not pop culture, he told us. Will you turn around and ask Connor what he does know about?
What,
what are his
about gaming?
passions?
It's not Fetty Wap for sure.
A fair amount about politics, I think.
He knows a lot about
Modern
politics.
history.
History. He likes history. He fits in here with history.
History.
Yeah.
Roman
All
Empire.
right, we'll do a history test.
We'll do a history test at some
We'll do a
point.
history test, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
Josh Hamilton was an absolute stud. By the way, and I'll tell you guys, 6'4", 250. I said to Josh,
Dang.
what do you weigh? He said 250. He's just big. He's big. And I'm like, what'd you weigh in your playing days? He goes, 250. I'm like, okay, I didn't mean to insult you. And he goes, by the end of the season, I weighed 225. I was like, really? He's like, dude, sweating that Texas heat for 162 games,
Yep.
you shed 25 pounds. I'm like, wow. Hamilton has an amazing life story, ups and downs. We talked about it. I want you to go ahead and subscribe, if you would, on Spotify or Apple, because he tells the story of being in his grandma's house, smoking crack. His grandma coming in the room. He says, I remember when she opened the door, I could see the crack smoke filling up her entire house. She comes in, she's crying, talking about how he's lost his life and everywhere he is. And he said, I was still high, but it hit for some reason. And he threw the Bible onto the bed, and it fell up into a verse. That verse spoke to him. And from that day forward, he followed the path of the Lord. He says he has had relapses, all of which are famous, by the way, almost all of which. And he talks about all of that with us. And you're going to need to subscribe on Apple or Spotify to get that conversation this Friday. But when he was honored this last weekend at the Texas Rangers Hall of Fame, he was given his blue jacket. A lot of people like, how dare you honor this guy? And why did they say that? Because he was accused of child abuse. I'm going to say 6 years ago. 6 years ago. To which, by the way, he pled guilty. And honestly, I knew he didn't want to talk about it, and I wasn't going to press him on it. It wasn't the conditions of the interview or anything like that. But then he brought it up. And I think in a lot of ways might have said things he's never said before. So in that way, it's a bit of breaking news. Here's what he had to say about that.
This kind of addresses a little bit of what happened with my daughter. And I've been quiet on it. And I'm going to stay quiet because I've already promised the interview to somebody else when my daughters, younger two, graduate high school. Because I don't want them to deal with all the crap that goes along with back and forth in the media and stuff like that. But just imagine being accused of something you didn't do, and then having to, let's see, you have proof that you didn't, so you can clear it up, your innocence. But then having to decide, because you got a DA that's in a election year and can't look like she's going light on you. So you got to decide, okay, am I going to drag my daughter who claimed this in front of a jury in a courtroom? Am I going to drag my other two younger daughters in there, and they'll have to testify and everything? Or am I going to be a good dad? I'm going to fall on the proverbial sword here for my family and shut this thing down when it comes to them and keep them out of the media and keep out of a back and forth with my ex in the media and let them live their life and move on and take the hit for it.
Mm. So I don't know the truth. I don't know what happened. We didn't talk about it long, but that was the first I'd heard of his side of that story. As he suggested, in the future with somebody else, he plans to address this more fully. And I thought that was one of the fascinating moments we had with Josh Hamilton. Meanwhile, over on our social media, this has been an ongoing debate. How does your dog code, left or right? Two-a-days Dan and Ellie Palma, they have created a bracket. Now, how deep did you start the bracket? Like, how many dogs did you place into the bracket to start? Is it only 8, Dan?
So it's, just 8. I found that we just need to keep it a little simpler, so it goes on for a little bit long. But we had, you can see it up on your screen now. It's Golden Retriever, German Shepherd, Doberman Pinscher, Border Collie, Rottweiler, Beagle, Labrador Retriever, and Great Pyrenees.
Right. Okay. Those are the dogs you gave us as options, and you have advanced, it appears, to the finals. In the semifinals, you had the Golden Retriever, the Border Collie, which beat the Doberman, as to which dog is most conservative, and the Labrador and the Beagle. That was your final 4, it appears. And then your finals have come down to the Golden Retriever versus the Labrador, which is your most conservative dog. And I think you're in a good spot here. I mean, I think you are in the range of the most conservatively coded dogs. Let's revisit for a minute what I mean by code. Because I get texts. I saw all your social media comments. I also got a lot of texts. People be like, what are you talking about? My Chihuahua is conservative, or my Pit Bull is... I'm not talking about your dog, okay? We're talking about how your dog codes, right? And what does code mean? Code means, like, what the breed gives off. I've given a lot of examples today. Avocado toast, codes left. Checkered slip-on Vans, code left. Cowboy boots, real ones, code right. Not your Brooklyn version, but your real ones, code right. There's a lot of Wranglers, code right. I don't know what else, but we all know what we're getting at. It's when you look at something. I like salmon. Salmon codes left.
Does it?
Steak codes right.
Salmon, fish.
Oh yeah. When I used to go out to dinner with Steve and Rachel, if I didn't order a steak, they'd be like, "What's wrong with you? You lefty." I'm not saying I agree with all this. I'm just
veganism,
saying it is.
Vegetarianism, that's left.
I mean, that's Antifa, dude. That's like you're a full-on communist.
That's.
I understand there are
Stalin.
vegetarians
That's
on
Lenin.
the right.
Yeah.
Don't get mad. I understand there are vegetarians on the right. I'm just telling you what you're giving off. Like, if you're at a party and everybody's making burgers and you're like, actually, I'm vegetarian. Do you have like a tofu burger? Just at that moment, as well as I do, you have to go, no, but for real, I like Donald Trump. I mean, like, everybody thinks a certain thing. Patrick, tinfoil Pat. I mean, he's basically alt-right. But sitting on his table behind him, he's got a bunch of records that
he likes.
He literally has vinyl
rock.
that code left. By the way, vinyl codes left. You collect vinyl?
Here's one.
It codes left.
Here's one. Tattoos, left or right?
No, can't be done. I don't think it.
Everyone has tattoos now.
You could do other things. Yeah, they're too popular.
Okay.
Nose ring codes left.
Yes.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Like, for sure.
Blue hair.
Especially the bull ring right there in the middle.
Pink hair.
Septum.
Yeah, right. So the point is, we get it, right? Blue hair, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't even know what else.
No. Any color that's like not natural,
not dyed,
naturally occurring.
Not dyed blonde.
A blue. Yeah, you can't do blonde.
Dyed blonde code's right.
For women.
Yeah.
What about a dude that bleaches his hair blonde?
Oh, that's fully left.
That's fully left.
That's like LA.
It's like Green Day.
That's like LA hipster trying to be cool.
Yeah. Here's one. Soccer. Code's left.
Yeah.
I love soccer. Love it.
That codes lots of things.
Soccer. Code's left. Right. Football. Code's right. We know what the coding means, and your dog does as well. So, yeah, I'm sorry. Your pit bull does code left because it has become the rescue dog. The single white female. I can fix him dog. Right. That's what it is. I mean, it's got some other stereotypes that it plays into, but that's sort of what's become the dominant thing from pit bulls. And, same thing like Chihuahuas. It's not even about how your dog behaves. Everybody's like, oh, my dog lays around all day and expects to be fed. Basically, he's a welfare dog. He's on the left. Yeah, well, all dogs are, I mean, in that way, my dog barks when somebody comes to the door. He's super protective. Yeah, I get it. But, all dogs kind of do that. So it's about just kind of like the style and the reputation of your dog. That's what we're talking about. And I do think that in your bracket here, Dan, you probably have arrived at the two most right-coded dogs. My
German
only
Shepherd.
thing is, I think one is the clear winner. Yeah, I mean, German Shepherd is up there. And one could argue the German Shepherd should have, who you had matched up against the Golden Retriever, should have won. Because I think Patrick said it best. Like, the Golden Retriever is at best center right. The Golden Retriever doesn't think about politics a lot. But culturally, you can tell everything about him leans to the right. He's not overwhelmingly. He's a Bush Republican. He's
your
I
mom.
don't
my
know.
mom's
The Golden
Republican.
Retriever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, does he even read National Review? I'm not even sure he reads National Review.
He does the the crossword
I-
on paper, like on the actual paper.
Yeah. I mean, the Golden Retriever still drives a truck and he drinks Coors Light. He does all of those things. The Golden Retriever doesn't drink an IPA.
Not Bud
He's
Light
not
either.
at a Brooklyn brunch. He doesn't do any of those things. But he's also just not into it, man. He's like, he's pretty sure everybody's crazy. And he's just the common sense guy. The lab, and you specifically have up the black lab, he for sure codes right. Because the black lab in particular is a dog with a purpose. And that purpose is hunting. Like, that's the ultimate duck dog. More than the yellow lab.
That's why I chose
More
it.
than the chocolate lab. Yes. The black lab is, like, I understand people have black labs as pets and that thing, but that thing should be pointing at a duck somewhere in the freezing cold at 5:30 a.m. over a frozen pond. That's what he should be doing. And there is nothing about him that is on the left. I mean, I do think the German Shepherd could have been in there. The Doberman he codes pretty well to the right. I would argue maybe even more so than the Rottweiler, because I think that the Rottweiler it's not the Rottweiler's fault, but he has some faux tough guy thing that the faux tough guy, that has the barbed wire tattoo on his bicep.
Tribal.
That guy's a little harder to predict.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes he could be on the left and sometimes he could be on the right, and that's the guy with the Rottweiler.
Either way, we don't
You know
like
what I
him.
mean?
Yeah. No.
And I'm unconvinced about the Beagle. You put the Beagle in there. I don't know about. Yeah, I'm not sure.
A lot of
But
people voted for
that's
the
where the
Beagle.
bracket stands. That the Beagle is conservative.
The
Code's
traditionalists.
conservative. And how'd you pick a Great Pyrenees to put in there?
They're the most.
random
They're the
dog.
most protector dogs. They protect the herd and the cattle and all that.
All right. Well, before we go today, we had quite a start to the show. I had a lot to say about what went down yesterday on the Will Cain Show with James Tallarico, the rising star of the Democrat Party. And you jumped into the comments as well. So I wanted to bring you in. Here's what folks said in the Willisha. Over on, most of this is on YouTube. Alec Colley says, Will is a bit riled up. Love the passion. Yeah. There's something about questioning my integrity that really tees me off. The Dr. RJP says, remember Obama's pastor, Jeremiah Wright? Yeah, real paragon of virtue. Yeah, cloaking ourselves in pastorhood. Suzanne Nico says, James Tallarico said he doesn't even think his party is true to why he is a Democrat. Like, why identify to a party that once was but is no more? Sasha Savisha says, Democrat approval rating is at an all-time low. Don't let up, Will. Warrior Hill says, Will took a break so he could take his blood pressure meds. And then Rebel Senator says, heck no, they don't care about the truth. We will tell the truth right here, and I will do so again a little bit later. Make sure you tune in at 4 o'clock. More of that, I promise you. I'll take my blood pressure meds on the Will Cain Show. Until then, Fox News Facebook, Fox News YouTube, Will Cain Country YouTube, Spotify, Apple. We'll see you again next time.